He is a kind of contrast to Trump himself and the Trump administration in the things that he cares about. He's compassionate. He's compassionate for the poor. You treat the immigrant like you treat your own family. That's very, very different than what we're seeing in the White House.
In Rome, a pope projects righteousness.
He's either tweeting himself or retweeting about American politics, criticizing this president's stance on immigration, criticizing recently the Oval Office meeting between him and the president of El Salvador.
But is it a crafted facade?
Leo served as a bishop in Peru for almost a decade, and during that time he was accused of mishandling sexual abuse allegations. This is Father James Ray, a priest from Chicago who was accused of abusing minors in the 70s and 80s. Ray was eventually removed from the public ministry, but in 2000, Leo allowed him to live at a friary right near a Catholic primary school.
Leo XIV's social justice agenda stirs debate, yet whispers of ambition linger.
3 sisters came forward saying they were abused as minors by 2 priests in Leo's diocese back in 2007, which led to accusations of a cover-up.
Trump's path is open, his task force bold.
Trump announced he is launching a new presidential commission on religious liberty and an executive order that will target anti-Christian bias.
Could God favor the honest sinner?
Do the Access Hollywood tapes fall into the ultra-pious Christian category? No. But then again, he never said he was an ultra-pious Christian.
Does Leo's image mask truth? Is Trump's path God's choice? Join us.
If you've ever watched this channel and enjoyed the content, could I ask for a small favor? Please hit the subscribe button, share the content, and add your thoughts in the comments below. It's the only way we can keep growing, despite the algorithm. Your subscription, shares, and comments help this channel more than I can explain right now, make you an integral part of our success. I promise to return the favor by making the show increasingly better. We're on this journey together, and I'm willing to make that promise. Do we have a deal?
We're delving into a contrast of paths, 2 American voices, same generation, worlds apart. Pope Leo XIV's first U.S. pontiff projects a righteous image, advancing social justice, yet questions linger about Rome's deeper aims. Across the divide, Trump, 47th president, transparent about his challenges, guided by spiritual advisors, may align with God's work for Christendom. Does Leo's holiness reflect truth or a crafted facade? Let's explore the possibilities. We have Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost, Chicago-born, shaped by Peru, leading the church at 69. His encyclical sparks debate: migrants, climate, open doors. Then Trump, 78, business leader, public figure, back in power, advancing Christian priorities despite personal challenges. How do their paths intersect?
Their stories converge in May 2025. Rome's halls, St. Peter's Square, alive with reform's tension and stoked with emotional undulation of the masses, meeting Mar-a-Lago's dynamic, driven energy, a hub of political and cultural influence on the other side of the Atlantic. It's a contrast, to be sure, between projected righteousness and transparent struggles. And that's really set against the backdrop of Rome's ambitions. Leo's Peruvian experience no doubt informed his encyclical, presenting an image of holiness through social justice, a foreign concept to orthodoxy that dilutes the magnificent beauty and completeness of the theology taught by the fathers of the Church. The papacy's pursuit of global influence draws attention from spiritual duties, unlike orthodoxy's steadfast and unchanging truth. In terms of Trump's transparent efforts, Trump's challenges are public, to be sure, guided by advisors like Paula White, whose, theology, if we can call it that, let's say, leaves something to be desired. Yet his task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias, particularly in government, reflects a transparent commitment to protecting Christians in a world increasingly hostile towards the faithful. Is this possibility favored by God? When looking at those 2 figures, one could teach a masterclass in power politics, and it's not the one based in the U.S. presently. In terms of theological inquiry, John Chrysostom calls for faith through action. But do Catholic bishops, Leo among them, reflect Rome's abuse of authority over the vulnerable, as seen in Chicago, while the social justice agenda widely promoted in Catholic universities for decades now questions holy tradition? Could God favor Trump's honest struggles, which have led to initiatives to protect Christians over Leo's carefully crafted political image?
Pope Leo's encyclical emphasizes social justice, migrants, climate, drawing from his Peru years. Could this focus, viewed by some as progressive, diverge from Holy tradition, reflecting Rome's broader theological aims?
Did Peru shape Leo's life and have an influence on him? Yes. Leo's decades in Peru, in Trujillo, in Chulucanes, from 1985 to 2000, and then from 2014 to 2023, apparently deepened his political ambitions on social causes regarding open borders and climate issues. His progressive social media critiques of U.S. policies reflect Rome's aim to project a holy image with global influence, because power itself, you see, is addictive. In terms of holy tradition's foundations, however, they fall far short. Orthodoxy, per 2 Thessalonians 2:15, upholds holy tradition as the Spirit's voice. Leo's social justice agenda is detached from this and leans hard into secular ideologies, raising questions about alignment with the Church's teachings. By all appearances, its continuity with Francis's radical liberalism. This is Rome's man, a political cloaking, almost a Manchurian candidate actually, an American on the surface, but a state of mind deeply inculcated with the pervasiveness and the perversions of the political theology coming out of the left-leaning and often Marxist South America. In terms of his Chicago oversights, there needs to be answers for prior leadership decisions. His shifting around of Father James Ray in 2000, who was facing abuse allegations and at Leo's discretion landed near an elementary school with no parental notification, needs full explanation. Is he different than, say, the disgraced Cardinal Law, who was proven to have ignored or concealed the molestation of many underage children? They were contemporaries, part of the same institutional Catholic culture, in the same generation, in the same country. Did his ideological focus and political ambition shift attention from, let's say, deeper duties, suggesting a crafted facade? The answers seem self-evident. In terms of the theological perspective, I would say Basil the Great teaches that the faith prioritizes the helpless. If Leo's righteous image, tied to Rome's theological ambitions, diverges from holy tradition, most evident in orthodoxy, then it becomes a carefully crafted facade, to be sure, not unlike that of the Pharisees. They have eyes to see, but do not see, and ears to hear, but do not hear, for they are a rebellious house. That's what we hear in Mark 8:18. Would God favor Trump's transparent path over such hypocrites? What do you think?
The questions deepened. Pope Leo's encyclical leaks sparking protests, with some questioning its alignment with progressive ideals. Trump's schools funding passes, supported by evangelicals despite his challenges. Their paths, one projecting holiness, one transparent, shape the debate. How does this unfold, particularly with Pope Leo's past oversights and Rome's influence?
Again, looking at the theological context, Leo's encyclical projects a holy image through social justice, but the Church is the bride of Christ. Let's be clear on that. It's not a platform for Rome's influence and political ambitions. His approach continues Francis's liberalism, or we can say ultra-liberalism actually, under a thin veneer of conservatism, and diverges from the holy tradition of the Eastern Orthodox churches, raising serious questions about the real intent of the political apparatus in Rome. Trump's public efforts, on the other hand, Trump's challenges are transparent, not unlike David's in 2 Samuel 11. This makes his task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias and school funding all the more notable and sincere, suggesting a deep purpose and meaning despite the limitations of his current, well, I'm not sure what to call it again, or what to call them. I guess we can loosely say spiritual advisors. Evangelicals with their ultra-political ambitions and simplified theological approach, and Paula White, whose perspective is even more, let's say, limited, support Trump's efforts. Yet God may use such openness, not entirely unlike Cyrus the Great, who was, as you'll recall, considered an instrument of God in the Old Testament, fulfilling his divine plan, even though he did not worship the God of Israel. For Christendom's benefit, unlike Rome's furtive political ambitions. And then in terms of Leo's institutional focus, I would say Leo's oversights in Chicago and Peru, where Rome's authority shapes bishops' priorities, almost certainly reflects a crafted image over the vulnerable and the faithful alike, which certainly raises questions about this alignment with, well, Christian values.
Trump's contributions are widely known, but Pope Leo's past, like those oversights in Chicago and Peru, seems less clear. Could his silence reflect loyalty to Rome's authority, possibly prioritizing institutional image over the vulnerable?
Trump's challenges, again, are extremely public. They're supported by, again, these sort of quasi-spiritual advisors like Paula White, whose prosperity gospel is obviously less grounded than even evangelical thought. Yet his actions, like the task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias, again, show a transparent commitment which God may favor in honest sinners over the hypocrisy which inevitably engulfs the self-righteous and very often the professionally religious. In terms of Leo's quiet oversights, in 2000, Father James Ray, facing abuse allegations, resided at Leo's Chicago friary with no safeguards. In Peru, in 2022, 3 women's abuse claims accusing 2 priests there of sexual abuse began in 2007 when they were minors lacked any just action to protect the vulnerable or to hold the accused predators accountable. The accusations of cover-ups seem supported by the ominous silence that so often is the hallmark of these cases. These silences, which really scream, align with the Catholic bishop's nearly uniform focus on Rome's authority and the selling out for a sort of veneer of holiness. Look at Gregory of Nazianzen, who emphasizes the shepherd's duty to protect the weakest above institutional aims. Orthodoxy's fidelity to holy tradition and proper ecclesiology prioritizes gospel truth over, we can say, institutional imperatives, which Leo's silence, tied to Rome's image, does not reflect. In terms of the theological inquiry, the Philocalius kenosis, or kenotic theology, self-emptying love, questions Leo's silence and apparent crafted facade, prioritizing Rome's authority over the vulnerable, standing in stark contrast to Trump's open efforts. Once again, does God favor transparency seen in Trump's Christian initiatives over hidden hypocrisy? Well, that should be self-evident.
The stakes are peaking. Leo's encyclical's out. St. Peter's in turmoil. Some questioning its progressive leanings. Trump's school fundings through evangelicals supporting him, despite public critique. Leo's vision meets Trump's faith. How do their paths shape questions about Pope Leo XIV's holiness?
At the core of this debate is Leo's political vision. Migrants, climate, Peru's influence. It projects an image of holiness, but perhaps only in his own mind. But the church is Christ's body, not a vessel for Rome's influence or social justice ideologies. Diverging from holy tradition, which has only been maintained in the Orthodox Church. Trump's challenges are open, yet let's be clear, his policies, like his actions to combat anti-Christian bias, particularly in government, which has been destroying Western culture and Christian culture for decades, reflects leadership akin to Constantine's flawed yet faithful reign, serving God's will. It's impossible to escape that conclusion. Leo's hopes that his narrative on holiness shines, but his Chicago and Peru oversights, to put it nicely, are really tied to Rome's authority and deeply flawed ecclesiology, raising questions about a papacy that in fact exclusively focuses on influence rather than the vulnerable. I think there's a holiness test. The question is whether Leo's self-styled righteous image aligns with God's call, or if Trump's transparent path, bolstered by both Christian initiatives, holds true potential for Christendom.
Leo's preaching, poor, outcasts, earth, presents him as holy. Could this righteous image reflect more ambition than substance, compared to Trump's transparent contributions to Christian communities?
Leo's preaching, poor, outcasts, the earth, rooted in Peru, or his time in Peru, purports to reflect Luke 4:18's mission. Yet James 2:17 notes, so also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. His social justice agenda is progressive and almost certainly reflects a closet Marxism, prioritizing, as did his predecessor, Rome's influence and its political ambitions over divine truth. In Chicago in 2000, James Ray, facing abuse allegations, resided near a school under Leo's oversight. Those are the facts. with no alerts to the parents. In Peru, in 2022, unresolved abuse claims lingered and seemed to be brushed under the rug, cardinal law style. This history suggests that papacy focused, in reality, on political ambition over the vulnerable. The Cappadocian Fathers teach that true righteousness prioritizes the helpless, which is the distinction from mere virtue signaling, a sort of self-aggrandizing image. Leo's presentation, tied to Rome's aims, raises questions if it overshadows deeper duties, unlike Orthodoxy's deference to holy tradition. Trump's challenges, again, are public, his human frailties on full display, like David. Yet his actions to eradicate anti-Christian bias, particularly in government, and targeting of school funding to effect positive change in the culture, show real efficacy, underpinning the suggestion that God may favor honest sinners, again, over any crafted facade. We learn from Holy Scripture that God shapes flawed vessels, David, Constantine, you name it, into instruments, favoring the transparent over the hypocritical. Leo's self-crafted righteous image, Peru's Marxist influence, and a pattern of leadership failures tied to Rome's ambitions and social justice fall far short of Orthodoxy's fidelity to holy tradition and emphasizes a kenotic theology as prefiguring the cross. So the open question remains. Orthodoxy's call for truth probes facades like those consistently coming out of Rome, a city that is more like a snow globe, in my opinion, than an epicenter of Christian fervor and vitality. Does Leo's projected righteousness masking Rome's aims align with God's will, or does Trump's open path hold greater potential? The answer, in my opinion, should be exceedingly clear.
He has a poor track record on fasting. He was once accused of using vulgar language, but he said the accusation was bullshit. He loves the smell of gasoline and burning oil around his motorcycles and never stops drinking Coke Zero. He hasn't learned how to walk away from a fight. He's been to hell and back more than once, bringing a few public companies along for the ride. Other clergy scoff at him. The SEC and Big Pharma try to, quote, silence him for good. But their efforts haven't had the intended effect. That's Father Emmanuel.
Growing up in Tirana, where the call to a dawn echoed from the spiraling minarets, was a powerful experience for her. Albanians were forced to convert to Islam under Ottoman rule. In 1967, under the Marxist-Leninist regime, Albania became the world's first atheist state and destroyed churches to eradicate Christianity, in a land where St. Paul once preached the gospel. Her grandfather fought as a guerrilla fighter, and her father commanded a tank brigade. When communism collapsed, there was an insurrection against the state, leading to anarchy. Albanian women are known for their resilience. It is said they are born from the barrel of a gun. As a teenager, her father was flown out of the country without notice on a military helicopter to save his life. From then on, she started sleeping with an AK-47 next to her bed.